Trump is optimistic about the peace talks with Iran and Pakistan tomorrow. Vice President Vance will lead the negotiations. The new Ayatollah's threat against the Strait of Hormuz marks a new phase. That's interesting. Our guest says that Iran will try to string us along with a bad deal, but Trump won't allow it. Joining us is Fox News analyst and president of ISW, General Jack Keane. General, we're in the ceasefire phase. The president is optimistic. And you?
The president has information that none of us have. Therefore, something tells him that this negotiation is better than any previous one and better than what the Iranians did during Obama's administration. So that must be a fact. But no, I'm not optimistic about this because this is what the Iranians do. I mean, they are masters at obfuscation and delaying negotiations. Everything they care about is at stake. Everything from their nuclear program to ballistic missiles, their drones, and support for allied groups. Everything they stand for, they would have to give up voluntarily. It's hard to understand that they would do that. What they would probably do is give in on points that would encourage us. That's different. They're willing to make a deal here. Drag this out for weeks. And why do they want to drag this out? Well, because they don't want us to strike back. And the longer oil prices stay low, the longer there's less economic pain, the longer there's less political pressure. That makes it much harder in their minds for the government to come back and finish the job militarily. I believe that's their strategy, and they're very clever at it. In fact, they're better at that than at fighting. History speaks for itself. And the other thing is, whatever the agreement is, Brian, let's say we close something and they're signing it. Can we trust these guys from now on? No. Absolutely not. I don't think so. General, what are the options? So we have to be prepared. Yeah, we have to be prepared. And I know that our forces can open that strait and protect the ships passing through it. People are worried about a drone here and a missile there, and it won't cost anything to stop them. They don't understand the right plan and the details of the plan. The United States Armed Forces can secure a defined corridor through the straits to provide absolute air cover and a protective bubble around all of this, and to ensure that anything that tries to penetrate it will be defeated. My God, we've been protecting our ships from Iranian attacks for weeks. We can do this. It would be something much more limited. Right. It's true that they have a coastline they can fire from, but do you think we're going to let anyone get close? We'll have Apache helicopters in the air, increased surveillance. We know how to do this. Right. It's nothing. Nothing serious, really. It's not that it's not challenging. I'm not saying there's no risk involved. There's risk in every military operation, but it's doable. It's very doable.
General, Chinese and Iranians pass freely, and they decide about ships from India and Pakistan. Why don't we stop them from passing too? Why can't we do that? Letting them be in command while they charge people. Extortion is not something anyone can tolerate.
Well, I always thought that the first option would be available to us when they close the straits, as opposed to, the security option, which involves a lot more resources. It would simply be a case of the Iranian ships are passing, just quarantine them in the Gulf of Oman. And talking to our military personnel, it wasn't a big deal. They can do it. They did the same thing off the coast of Venezuela. Many of these Chinese ships depend on oil from the Persian Gulf, and they would be in serious trouble if we acted like that. The president calls Xi and says, look, Iran is forcing us to act. This is something I don't want to do, but I need to open the strait. And that's the reality. And you're going to pay a price. What I would like is for you to call the Iranians and tell them to stop this. I'm not asking them to stop confronting us, just to stop closing the strait. I think that's a viable strategy. And if we keep having problems with them, I think that's the strategy we should adopt first, even before moving to the military option of running protected convoys through the strait. Yes.
Yes, it's going to be 2 intense weeks. The weekend will be important. J.D. Vance is in charge, but they won't be able to keep control of the Strait of Hormuz. It's larger than the Persian Gulf. Thank you. Go ahead, General. Thank you very much.
One last point. Look, President Trump is not going to make a bad deal here. As much as he thinks a good deal is coming, he'll only know for sure when it's on the table and what the verification process will be. He knows these guys are liars and cheaters. No one has negotiated with this regime more than this president. And in fact, this is the only president who has ever confronted them significantly in terms of military operations. Right, he knows what he's dealing with here, and I'm confident that he's not. We're not going to end up making a terrible deal after all the sacrifices we've been making so far, so my bet is on that outcome for sure. It's not a bad deal, and we might find ourselves having to go back to military operations and put an end to this once and for all. And in that regard, I'm in favor, because that way we're not giving the regime a financial lifeline. In any agreement, we would have to remove the sanctions and freeze billions in assets. The regime won't recover immediately, but they will get back on their feet with this financial aid.
General, good point. Yeah, everyone will be watching. We can't leave it as it is. General Jack Keane, thank you. President Trump is optimistic about reaching a deal with Iran, while Vice President Vance is preparing crucial peace negotiations in Pakistan. Thank you.
But Iran's supreme leader is already complicating the process by suggesting plans to take control of the Strait of Hormuz and demand fees.
Trey Inkst joins us live from Tel Aviv with the details. Good morning, Trey.
Yes. Hey, everyone. Good morning. With high-stakes negotiations in Islamabad this weekend, Israeli intelligence told Fox News that Iran is charging fees to vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. The official adds that the area is under the full control of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. They decide who gets through, but more importantly, who doesn't. I was informed that intelligence is sharing data on how Iran is trying to tighten control in the Strait ahead of the negotiations. Overnight, President Trump said on Truce Social, and I quote, "Iran is doing a very bad and dishonorable job by restricting oil in the Strait of Hormuz. That is not our deal." With only 8 vessels passing through in the first 48 hours of the ceasefire, the state media of Iran's supreme leader released a statement saying, and I quote, "And we are certainly entering a new era with the management of the Strait of Hormuz. We do not seek war, but we will not give up our legitimate rights in any way. And for that reason, we consider all fronts of resistance as one." The region is awaiting the outcome of the talks in Pakistan, while Iran and Partua are discussing different terms. The Iraqi foreign minister commented on the negotiations yesterday.
We discussed the next round of negotiations in Pakistan, and we support and encourage this process. And we hope that the negotiation process achieves its goals, which are peace and security in the region.
One sticking point is whether Israel will still be able to attack Hezbollah, Iran's main ally in Lebanon. During the night, the Israelis attacked launch positions in southern Lebanon, and then Hezbollah launched a rocket that triggered sirens in Tel Aviv.
I want to tell you, there is no ceasefire in Lebanon. We continue to attack Hezbollah with force, and we will not stop until your security is restored. Our great achievements, both in Iran and against the axis of evil, have brought about a historic change in Israel's status in the region.
Next week, Israel and Lebanon are expected to begin talks to seek peaceful relations and the disarmament of Hezbollah. But Israeli intelligence informed Fox News that Iran is demanding payment of fees for passage through the Strait of Hormuz. We are now contacting the shipping companies to confirm if these fees are being paid. Guys!
Trey, is there any talk about arming the people of Iran? I know that worked for Reagan in Nicaragua.
A week ago, I spoke with President Trump about this issue, and he said they tried to get weapons into the hands of Iranian protesters earlier this year, but in the end, they were withheld. According to the president, the Kurds say, "I reached out to regional sources who confirmed that these weapons were sent and did not reach the protesters. Certainly, there are a variety of options for the president. They are waiting to see the outcome of the negotiations in Islamabad, understanding that the Iranians have no bargaining power at the negotiating table. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard was destroyed and decimated after Operation Epic Fury. Iran's nuclear program was eliminated during Operation Midnight Hammer. The production lines of these ballistic missiles and drones have been targeted by Zebriwa and Israel in the past 40 days. Therefore, the Iranians have very little to bring to the negotiating table, and officials say they will have to admit they lost on the battlefield and change their stance if they want to reach a good faith agreement. Trey.
Iran will hardly admit defeat and hand over the uranium or the Strait. That makes us wonder, will they keep negotiating, claiming progress like they've done before? Is it really happening, or do you think there's a deadline maybe within 2 weeks for these talks to either gain momentum or fall apart?
That's a great question. President Trump made it clear that the Iranians say one thing to the press and another at the negotiating table because they want to keep up appearances of still having internal power, even with the country devastated by Israeli attacks. We are looking at several issues, and we can clearly see a public difference between the positions of the Americans and the Iranians. The president said earlier this week that Iran allowed a team to go to the facilities where there was enriched uranium, dig up the uranium after Operation Midnight Hammer, and remove that highly enriched material from the country. This week, Iran's nuclear chief secured the uranium. And there's the Strait of Hormuz, where the president demanded that this passage be opened. But the Iranians are playing games, blocking free passage and, according to our reports, charging fees for this critical journey. Finally, there's the support for groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, as well as the ballistic missile program that threatens LBS Waramewa's allies in the region. Without significant concessions after this defeat on the battlefield, the region will likely return to a state of conflict.
All right, excellent report, Trey. So you need to destabilize the political leadership, and although we, together with the Israelis, have destroyed much of that structure, a lot of it still remains standing. You have two options: eliminate them yourself, or people will eventually do it. Right now, they lack the weapons. So I think that, when you brought the general and he talked about us being on the 5-yard line, this needs to happen, not for regime change, but you just postpone it for another 10 years until they try to do it all over again.
The general said that the Iranians are masters at stalling negotiations and that everything they value is at stake. We want them to give up.